In today's video, we're going to put together our sunflower gift box. I have a feeling that this is going to be the fan favorite. I think it's my favorite, and I've not yet put it together. We're going to do that. I have a prototype. Kind of gives me an idea of what it's going to look like, but it's not jazzed up, so to speak. Speaking of that, well, we're going to start with some simple things, and then we're going to ink the flower, and I'll show you how I did that. It's actually very simple. So I did a little bit of pre-prep here. Now the sections that you're looking at right now are the top of the box, okay? And these two sections that you see here, if you take a look at the tab right here, you'll see the letter T. That indicates that this is the top. And over here, you'll also see that this is the top piece, okay? Now the pre-prep stuff that I did here was simply putting panels on, so it's not a big deal. I'm gonna do a few of them with you, and you're just gonna finish up the rest. And as you can pretty much figure out here, the panels for the top are all the same size. The bottom does not have any panels that have patterned paper, but the bottom does have this green overlay. Okay, this panel here. And the difference is the top is a lot larger than the bottom, okay? We'll get to the bottom in just a moment here, but let's put these panels in place. And first thing you'll notice is that on this actual piece here, there are some markers to help you with the alignment. And now, again, one other thing too to keep in mind, if you are using a patterned piece of paper that requires a specific orientation. Like for example, this sunflower pattern, you can see that the leaves here are drooping because of gravity. So you don't want to put it upside down. I guess you could, it wouldn't be the end of the world, but depending on your pattern, you may have to actually, put it and put it down correctly as far as the orientation goes. So be aware of that. And you'll know that you're putting it on right because the T over here will be upside or right side up. Okay, so that is a good indicator that you're doing it the right way. So of course, we're gonna put our panels in place using the little guides. Essentially, it will be nice and centered on this piece here with a nice even border going all the way around. So we need to do that. Okay, again, just using the little guides here to help me with the centering. There we go. Okay, so you can do that 6 times on all 6 pieces, and then we're also going to put the little green panels in place as well. So get your glue on those. And there's no markers for this one, but just want to make sure that you get it nice and centered. And then when you put your first one down, kind of use the one next to it as a guide to make sure that they're all kind of in line. Okay, you can see here that they are. There's a little room, little room for variation as far as the position that you put it in. It's not significant, so even if you're off by a smidge, I don't really think anyone's going to notice. There we go. Okay, so you're going to do that 6 times. Okay, and this is our top, and it's pretty much ready to go. So we'll put that off to the side for a second. We'll take a look at our bottom. And just like the top, the bottom has a little B on these tabs here to indicate that it is the bottom. And as I did with the previous top, I've already placed 4 of the panels down. So you're going to put all 6 of your panels in place. Okay, and as you can see, I did hit this with a little bit of brown ink. It's actually more of a reddish brown. I'm just going to fold that over. Okay, and I'll get my last one in place. Again, you are going to do this 6 times on all 6 sections with all 6 panels. And there we go. Just like we did with the top, just make sure that you get it nice and centered, nice even border going all the way around, like so. And there we have it. Okay. So that pretty much wraps up that section. We'll assemble this in just a moment. We're going to take a look at our flower here so I can show you how I did the inking on this. So this is what the flower looks like when you get it off your mat. And I inked one off camera, and you can see the difference, how that really looks more realistic. This is a little plain, okay? So find a nice orange ink, and if you have this little tool by Ranger, it's very helpful for something like this because you can work quickly and really gauge the pressure, and you have a wider area to work with, because if you put your finger behind it, you're pretty much limited to this much area. But with this, it pretty much, I don't know, doubles, maybe triples the area that houses the ink here, or holds the ink. So what I did was I took my little tool here, got a good amount of ink on there, and you never want to start directly on the paper, okay? I always kind of work my way in. And now, one other thing that I noticed when I was inking that one, some of these little petals are they have a little curve to them. And if you push down too hard, you may accidentally snag one of these petals and just kind of warp it or bend it or whatnot. So if you are using a tool like this, go very easy on the pressure, almost as if it's just kind of hovering. And then change directions, go clockwise and then counterclockwise so that you can get both sides of the petal. Okay, and then when you start to notice that maybe it's not getting as much coverage, probably means you just need a little more ink. Start off to the side and then bring it in, and then change directions. And you can go as heavy or as light as you want. I just kind of keep going until I feel that it's looking the way I want it. You can just kind of tell when it looks aesthetically pleasing. Just kind of trust your gut. Again, go easy with the pressure so that you don't end up snagging the paper. Now, if you don't have a tool like this, you can certainly do this with your finger. I think it'll just take a little bit longer, and well, it's just a little more work. I tend to use this method when I'm doing flowers anyway, because it allows me to kind of work my way up the petal instead of just around the petal. Okay. It just makes it look more realistic. If you take a look at flowers in nature, you'll see that, well, if they do have this sort of gradient effect because they're getting dehydrated or whatever it may be, rarely is it just around the perimeter. Usually this is the area here where it starts to kind of wilt and dehydrate first, and then it makes its way up the rest of the petal. Okay, so just kind of keep going in circles, and as you do this, it may actually be pulling some of that excess ink off of the paper as well. So you may not need to always or continually reapply your ink, but you should be able to tell when and if it's starting to maybe not leave as much of that pigment on your paper. Okay, it's a little hard to tell in some areas here because this petal is actually sitting right on top of a white sheet with the same color ink, but as soon as we move it away from this section and put it on something white where you can see the contrast, you can see how brilliant that looks and how lifelike it looks. It's a beautiful little gradient. And like I said, you can bring this in as far into the center as you want. Now bear in mind that ultimately we're going to have these layers on here. Okay, so you don't want to bring it in too much because then you're just going to end up with an entire orange flower. You want to leave a little bit of that gradient and a little bit of that original yellow or sunflower, AC sunflower color visible. It just makes it look a little more realistic. Okay, so that's really it. I'm pretty much happy with that. So I'm going to end on that note and cover up my inks so they don't dry out. And I'll show you how to shape this. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so we're going to grab a dowel, and I'm going to start off with a 3/8 inch, and then I'm going to go to a 1/4. I think that's a 1/4 inch. Yeah, that's a 1/4 inch. Start off with a 3/8 inch. We're going to take the dowel, and that might be too big, but we'll try it. You don't want to put it all the way in because you're going to end up ripping the petal. So bring it to about halfway up the petal and just bend it around the petal, almost like you're kind of curling your hair. And I think that, it's actually not too bad. I'm going to try this first. Just go all the way around on every petal. And see, this one's not going to work as well because it's a little bit thinner. But I think it's going to be okay. And essentially what we're doing right now is just taking those fibers in the paper and, well, kind of remolding them and shaping them, training them as we call it. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I don't know if it's got the dimension I want, so I'm going to go to my 1/4 inch dowel. I'm going to bring it down a little bit more, and I think that one is going to do it for me. I'm going to stick with, I think the 1/4 inch is going to look better. So you always want to start with a thicker dowel and then work your way to a thinner dowel so that, because there's kind of no going back. Once you train it with a 1/4 inch dowel, you're not really going to be able to go back and untrain it and have it keep its shape as nicely. And I think that's going to work nicely. Okay, so that being said, I'm going to do the same thing to the other one here. And I'm just going to hop right into my 1/4 inch dowel. We'll go straight to that one. Okay. And just try to center it as best as you can based on where the tip of the petal is. And that should do it. Now, I kind of liked maybe the way that we did it with the 3/8 inch first and then followed up with the 1/4 inch would work too. And it looks like it might actually give you a smoother result. But either way, I think it's fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and just kind of slightly, not completely, but just slightly pinch the tips. And that's going to help it keep its shape even longer. Eventually this will kind of flatten out a bit, but it will never completely flatten out. There we go. Okay, so when we put this together, what we're going to do is we're going to pop this on top of the other layer, and we're actually going to use some foam squares to create some separation between these two layers. So grab some foam squares. I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to begin just putting these on the back of my flower. Probably 4 or 5 should do. Let me flip it over and just kind of give it a give test. It's not really giving much, so I'm pretty happy with that. Peel off the backing. And then when we apply this to the layer below it, we want to stagger these petals a little bit so they're not right on top of each other. So try to create the illusion that it's just a nice full sunflower. So kind of rotate it until it staggers as well, as fully as it can, I guess. Okay. So there we have that. And now these next layers are also going to be foam squared because, well, we want the flower to be nice and dimensional. Now before I did this, actually I took this and I ran it through my embossing machine using the Sizzix Tiny Dot folder. I believe that may even be a Tim Holtz folder. Okay, so we're going to pop that right in the center. Make sure you get it nice and centered, just like that. Beautiful. And then we're going to work our way from the largest to smallest sections here of the center of our sunflower, where all the seeds will be. And I think 4 is plenty. Peel those off. That's a really nice looking flower. Okay. And then when we put this on, we want to line up the scallops so that, well, the scallop is pointing at the other scallop. So you don't want to offset it. Just pop them right so that all the scallops kind of line up. Okay, do your best. Get that nice and centered. There we go. That's so beautiful. I don't even think we have a sunflower yet. So this is going to be a great little piece for many of our dreamers that have requested a full sunflower. We have a half of a sunflower on a box, and then we have kind of a sunflower on our scarecrow, which you can actually see behind me. Where is he? He's right there. Yeah, you can see the little sunflower there. But we don't have a full sunflower like this yet, until now. Okay, so we're gonna pop that one in the center. And then we have this little center one, this tiny little guy. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna curve that. Okay, so I've got a little ball tool here. And this is a really large mouse pad. And you can see the ball tool there. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start working this around, applying a very light pressure in a circle, starting in the center, then kind of working your way out. And the reason I'm not doing a lot of pressure right now is because I'm going to try to avoid creating a huge crease in this. You want to think about this as almost like when you're rolling dough. You know, when you're using your dough pin or your roller pin, you push down real hard. It's going to get real thin, and essentially pretend that the dough is the paper fiber, and we want to kind of work it out nice and slow so we don't stretch that fiber too much too quick. Just kind of pushing it along a little bit, little by little. Now, if you don't have time and you want to get it done, you have to push down a little bit harder, and it will become more round much quicker. But you can see already that it's kind of concave. Now that we've kind of loosened up those fibers, I'm pushing down at about 50% more pressure, working my way from the inside out. Okay, you can kind of slow down a little bit because we're not doing as many repetitions, but we're increasing the pressure. And try to work out to almost the edge. You don't want to go quite to the edge because then you're going to end up flattening that out. And we don't want to do that because we want it to become somewhat round, like a sphere. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so that's already, I don't know if you can tell, but you can see how that's kind of concave. It almost looks like a little bottle cap. I'm gonna add even more pressure now. And you can see there, it's starting to kind of create a little bit of a tear, but I'm gonna try to avoid that. And I think that's gonna be good. There we go. See how that looks. It's nice. Okay, we'll see how that sits. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty darn good, I'd say. That's really the result we're looking at. We want that to kind of cap off the top, and I'm pretty sure that I may be able to, well, I'm going to glue this down, I think. We'll put a foam square in the center of it just to kind of hold it up. But then just to close it off, I'm going to hit the perimeter with some glue so that it kind of stays put more. Okay. Ultimately, what I'm going to do with this is use some pearl drops to add just a bunch of random drops all over the center of our flower here. Okay, so our flower is done. Everything is pretty much ready for assembly here. I'm going to start off with the bottom. That's the first thing I grabbed. And the first thing we're going to do is connect the two sections together to make it one. So grab either side, doesn't matter, and apply your glue to the tab with the letter B on it. Okay, I'm going to spread that nice and thin. Grab the other section, line it up, and just make sure that it's nice and aligned up here. Give that a press, give it a second, and then you can fold it over onto itself and check that line, make sure it's nice and even. There we go. Okay, and then we'll just close it up, putting glue on our other tab with the letter B on it. Make sure you get it all the way on there, all the way out to the edge. There we go. And I'll take this and do this flat. Grab the other end and just line it up. It's a symmetrical piece, so it should just fall into place. Here we go. And then fold it over onto itself. Check your alignment, everything looks good. Give that one more solid press. There we go. Okay, so again, this is our bottom, and before we put the actual bottom of the bottom in place, we need to take these tabs here and glue them to their neighbors. So get your glue on one tab at a time here, tuck it behind the neighboring piece, and just press and hold. Make sure you get that nice and aligned. And there we go. If you go easy on the glue, it'll make quick work of this process. Shouldn't take more than about a few minutes here. Okay. Tuck that behind. Make sure that you get that lined up correctly, right up against that edge. And just give that a quick press a couple times and moving right along. And that's the benefit of going easy with the glue here. Okay. And grab the next one. Pop that into place. And just rocking and rolling here. Very simple. And then the top section is pretty much the same thing. Not much to it. So it should be a pretty quick box. Definitely, probably the most involved as far as, well, I don't know. It's probably the most fun, I'd say. I don't know if it's the most involved out of the three, because you get to do some inking on a flower. You get to put together a flower. There's a little bit of 3D assembly. Plenty of simple inking. I'm going to move this piece out of the way so I can get my hand in here easier. Same thing, doing the same exact thing, except this piece has the very bottom anchored to the tab, and that's fine. Okay, so that just leaves one more little guy over here. Get some glue on there. Spread that glue out nice and thin. Pop it behind its neighbor. Get that nice and lined up. There we go. And I'll move this out of the way in just a second here. Let me just get it in place. You can see that seam is all together. Kind of looks like a little spaceship. All right, so now I can go ahead and close this up. I'm going to take and apply my glue to the remaining tabs here. I'll do a quick little bit on the meat of the tab, and then we'll do a very, very thin line right out to the edge. I'll spread that nice and thin. Like so. And there we go. Just like that. And then flip these tabs up a little bit. We're going to bring the bottom down, get it aligned with this side here, the side opposite of the side that is already anchored. So focus on getting that aligned. And then if you need to kind of nudge some of the other walls in, just give them a very slight push. And just run your finger along the perimeter. Make sure that the little seams there where the bottom meets the sides is making good contact. You can flip it over and push on the tabs from the inside. Make sure those are getting good contact. And take a look at your work here. Make sure everything looks nice and crisp. And that looks great. Okay, so now we're going to put a little liner in the bottom here just to kind of sturdy up our base, our little container. Don't need a whole ton of glue on that, just something very simple. And then take this piece and just pop it right in and press that down. Okay, here we go. Perfect. All right, so our base is done, our flower's done. All that's left is put our top together, which is pretty straightforward. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to connect the main part here, the section that contains the little panels. So put some glue on the tab with the letter T on it. And you can put that down on your surface. Grab the other piece, line it up, make sure that the bottom of this piece lines up nicely right here. So a nice straight line there. Give that an initial press. And you can fold it over on top of itself. Check this line here. Make sure that that is sitting nicely on top of itself. Give that a little press. Beautiful. And then we're going to put some glue on the other tab with the letter T on it, like so. Spread that glue out. Okay, you can do this flat as well. Grab the other side, get that nice and lined up, and press that down. There we go. I'm going to fold it over on top of itself. Give that one more little press here. My hands are kind of sweaty. I don't want to get oil all over the paper. It's hot today. It's a really hot day. I think we're finally going to get some rain maybe in the next few days. We really, really desperately need it. All right, so we're going to close this up now by applying glue to these tabs. Like I said, pretty much the same as the bottom. Shapes are just a little bit different as far as the tab. Actually, the shapes are the same. This one's just a little bit longer. Okay, and we'll just close that up. Just press and hold. Okay, there we go. And just moving right along. On the home stretch here, guys. Cannot wait to see your version of this with your pattern papers and your colors. I know this one's going to be a hit. I just know it. I think all these are going to be a hit. I think my two favorite are this one and the basket. Very functional pieces, but I'm sure that the little luminary will find a nice place in my home somewhere. And if not, definitely at a friend's. Okay. Moving right along. There we go. Wonderful. Pull this out. Get that glue out to the edge. Pull this in. Tab goes behind the piece that I'm actually holding and controlling right now. Give that a press. And just a couple more. And our lid will be done. Take a look at it here in just a second. I can't wait to see what it's all going to look like when it's put together. It's going to be awesome, I'm sure. Okay, so we can fold this back, get it out of the way so that we have better control putting this tab in place. That looks right. I'll move it out of the way in a second here so you can see. There you go. You can see how that's together. And that just leaves one last little section here. I'm going to tuck that tab in. Just kind of pull it out a little bit. It's easier to glue. And just kind of hit that with my finger. Spread that glue out. And get that tucked behind its neighbor. Nice and lined up. Press and hold. Give it a good squeeze or two. And there we have it. And that just leaves our top. Move this out of the way and pull these down. And just like we did with the bottom, a little bit of glue on the meat of the tab. And then we'll do a nice thin line right at the very edge. So that we get a nice crisp seam here. And just kind of paint that glue out to the very, very edge of these tabs. There we have it. Okay, now flare these up a little bit. Bring this down, align it with this side here first. Get that nice and centered. If you have to kind of nudge or adjust the box a little bit by moving some walls, feel free to do that. I'm giving this a little bit of nudge there, giving that a little bit of a nudge, and now I'm just kind of working my fingers right along the seam here, around the perimeter, to make sure that that section there, the area, is making good contact. I'll flip it over, push down on the actual tabs now, make sure that those are getting a good hold here. And that's pretty much it. That's our top, okay? And as I mentioned, we're gonna use some foam squares. Well, let's put this on first. Make sure it fits. Of course it does. Beautiful, okay? And then put some foam squares on top of this. Get that nice and centered on our box, and that pretty much is gonna wrap it up for this project here. So you could glue it down flat if you'd like. I think that adding even more dimension to this is not going to hurt. I really want that sunflower to pop. And just kind of angle it towards you and make sure that you get that nice and centered, nice and even all the way around. And I think that's going to be a winner right there. Let's take a look there. And not exactly. Oh boy. That's a little challenging. Just kind of taking a look at how much the petals are hanging off of various areas here, and just doing my best to get it as centered as I possibly can, but I think that's going to do it. Okay, so if you want, you can kind of lift these up a little bit to create a little bit more separation between the petals, and then take a look at the final photo. I'm going to also add some gold liquid pearls to the top here, just to kind of give it a little more bling. That pretty much wraps up this project. Good sized box, very elegant, very summery and fall-y, I guess, since your sunflowers typically mature around this time of year as they prepare for fall. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, head on over to our YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, and while you're there, hit the little bell so that you get notifications anytime we release a new video or product. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I would love to see it, and so would the 22,000 plus dreamers that inspire us daily. So head on over to your Facebook, do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can type in the little URL, will take you directly there. So happy end of summer, happy almost fall, and as always, I look forward to crafting with you again.